What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Dean, and as you know, or if you are a fan of this channel, you will know I am a big football fan. I'm a big Richmond man, and I've been known to go pretty bonkers at the games sometimes. Get around it! But I also like to make bold predictions. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through the ladder predictor for the last 3 rounds of the season, and we're going to come up with a finals round prediction, or a top 8 prediction from the ladder predictor. Anyway, if you want to do this yourself, you can let me know your top 8 in the comments below, or you can put your whole ladder in there if you really want to. That's completely up to you, but I'll leave the link in the description for the ladder predictor. It's just on the AFL's website. But let's get stuck into it. So how this works is we basically go through game by game and determine a winner, and we pick a sort of a margin of about 10 points to decide who's going to win and by how much. So tonight's game is, of course, the Giants and the Hawks, and I think the Giants will get up. I think they're going to win by about 5 goals. I think it's probably the right margin for them to win, maybe in the mid-20s region. So we'll just go with a 30 points for that one. I think the Pies should beat the D's. 20 points seems reasonable given Melbourne's recent form. Port Adelaide should really win this game against Sydney. Sydney have been competitive the past couple of weeks, so I'm going to stick with sort of a 20-point margin here. I don't think it'll be much more than that. I think Brisbane are going to win against the Gold Coast by, let's say, 50 points. And that's going to put them into first place on the ladder. The next thing, we've got Essendon Bulldogs. Now, this is where I think it's going to get real interesting. I'm going to chuck this down to 10 points because I think this is going to be a close game. I think the Dogs are going to win. I think the Bulldogs are the sneaky chance of making the top 8. So I think they're going to win. And Essendon, they're in a bit of strife. We'll get to them in a moment. But have a look at how much even half of the round affects the ladder. We've seen movement everywhere, obviously, because not everyone's played. It's very hard to beat Geelong down at Geelong, but North Melbourne will put up a fight. So I'm thinking Geelong are going to win. I'm thinking it's going to be within about 10 points, and it should be a reasonably close game. I think Geelong's percentage doesn't really affect them or North Melbourne, so it's not too big of a deal there. Fremantle should beat the Saints. 20 points seems okay as well. Richmond by, let's go with 5 goals. I feel like that's probably a reasonable margin. I think West Coast should beat Adelaide by probably 40 points. I'm gonna put down there. So this is how we'll have it at round 23. We'll have West Coast, Geelong, and Brisbane. West Coast should overtake Brisbane, although that's going to be real interesting as to whether that happens if Brisbane beat the Gold Coast more than by West Coast. Yeah, beat Adelaide. So that should be very close to see it play out, because round 22, massive. Friday night game, couldn't really care less. I think Melbourne will win it, and they won't win it by much. It'll be a 10-point or less win. Carlton should beat St Kilda. 20 points seems okay. This is probably the most important game of the whole season, is Brisbane taking on Geelong. And the reason it is obviously this could make or break Brisbane's year as to whether they finish in the top 4 or if they don't. If they win this game, they're top 4. If they lose it, they're not. Or they're thereabouts. They're teetering on the edge. I'm going to go Brisbane to win this game, only because I have seen the miracle on grass, and I feel like that should happen again. 20 points, 3 goals. I think that's probably going to be about the margin. I think that Brisbane should beat Geelong that way. Plus, Geelong's form hasn't been that great of late. And there's actually been some Geelong supporters saying that they're tanking a little bit. Adelaide-Collingwood, again a massive game, because if Adelaide lose this game, which I think they will, I think Collingwood will win. Yeah, real damaging stuff for them. North could beat Port Adelaide, although we just saw Port Adelaide have a big win over Essendon at Marvel. So maybe we go with Port and they lock themselves in, like they just win, and they lock themselves in a top 8 spot. And Fremantle in Perth are a 6-goal better team than they are, and Essendon will be in extreme danger of missing out on the 8, so I'm going to put them as a loss in this game. I think Fremantle will win. I think Richmond at the G, you just got to back in really good teams at home. 20 points again, probably even closer than that. That could be 10 points. And then you've got the Giants and the Dogs. Now, obviously, this is a massive game for the Bulldogs. They have to win this one if there are any chances of making the finals. I don't think they're going to. I think the Giants will keep the ball rolling. They'll win, and the Hawks will get up over the Gold Coast in what really doesn't matter a game. So now this brings us to the last week. Who is going to make the top 8 in this final week of the season? Gold Coast, 100% wooden spoon confirmed by this point, so they're out of the action. Brisbane's a game clear on top when Richmond beats West Coast in round 22, but they could still lose a top 2 finish in the last round of the season, or can they? Can they not? Their percentage is supposedly very good at this point. I've had that, so we'll see how that plays out. I think Collingwood beats Essendon, or do Essendon beat Collingwood? Essendon's final season's on the line. Let's go with Essendon beating Collingwood, getting themselves into the 8. So I just feel like they'll have to win one of their last 3. I think Sydney should win, North Melbourne should win down there in Tasmania, Geelong should win. Their percentage is irrelevant, so it doesn't really matter here. I think the Giants will win, the Eagles will win, the Dogs win, and what does that do for them? Nothing. They're still screwed. They can't make the finals even if that's the case. But this is where it gets interesting, because now we've got the last 2 games of the year potentially determining how this whole season comes together. Because if Brisbane win, they finish top. If Richmond win, they finish in the top 4, play Geelong the first week of the finals. Okay? And then on the other side of things, we've got Port Adelaide and Fremantle playing off, and they're currently sitting in 8th or 9th. So, you know, if it's a draw, obviously Port Adelaide make it because they got the superior percentage. It's in Adelaide. Port Adelaide can win, and they'll still be fine. And Fremantle could win, and they'll knock Port Adelaide out. So that's where this game becomes all of a sudden critical to both of the seasons of all of these 4 teams, all still season on the line for them. And this Richmond-Brisbane game, you got to look at this and go, Brisbane can't afford to lose this game by too much, because chances are they're going to drop their percentage enough. Let's say West Coast only win this by 10 points or whatever. If they only drop their percentage by, a little bit, they could still stay in the top 2. But if they drop it a little bit more, let's say Richmond get over them by, 3 or 4 goals, or they kick 2 late junk time goals, that could be the difference to Brisbane finishing in 3rd or Brisbane finishing in 2nd and making a 6-hour trip to Perth. So this, I think Richmond will beat Brisbane, and I also think Fremantle. They've had some good away wins this year. Can Freo do it? I reckon this game will be just a Fremantle win. I feel like it's just going to happen, and that's how it'll all work. That's how I think it might work out. And this is my final ladder prediction. Now, bear in mind, I haven't done very well on my tips this year. I think I'm sitting 11th in a 40 people comp, so I'm doing okay. I'm on 100 but I don't think I've got a 9 round right for the year. So if I manage to get all of these right for the rest of the year, I'll be very astonished with how my ladder ends up. But as you can see, the top 4 all separated on percentage, similar to 2017. Richmond plays Geelong in the first final, similar to 2017. It's going to be a really, really interesting couple of weeks to see how this plays out, because obviously the way I had it finishing is that last game for the year is deciding who gets the final spot in the 8, and that obviously the second last game of the year decides whether or not the Giants make the top 4. So I feel like Richmond will keep winning. I feel like obviously at the G they're going to be harder to beat than if they were anywhere else. Their percentage is not going to be good enough to overtake either West Coast or Brisbane, so I think top 2 out of the possibility there. I think Geelong should still finish first. They only got to win, 2 of their next 3, provided Richmond knock off both West Coast and Brisbane. So that'll be really, really interesting to see how this all plays out. And if any of these 1 or 2 games, especially the games with Richmond involved, if they drop one of those, they're out of the 4. You can see how that affects things, and it affects how the finals play out as well. So it's going to be a really, really interesting last few weeks. This is what I think is going to happen. I think obviously the Gold Coast will get the spoon, but if Adelaide finish, and this is the other one you got to look at here, Adelaide and Carlton, because obviously the pick swap, so Adelaide get pick 4 because we think Gold Coast will get 1 and 2, and then the Blues will get, what, 5, 6, 7, 8, pick 9. So, that is very interesting. Yeah, so that, obviously, pick 4 and 9, not a massive differential there. Obviously, probably the 4th best player would be a little bit higher rated than the 9th best player, but always with those interstate teams, they tend to go with talent that are around them, whether they don't necessarily pick the Victorians, they might pick the best South Australian player in the draft. So that's obviously going to be really interesting to see how that plays out as well. But this is what I think the ladder will look like. I think we'll see the finals. Let's have a look at how they're looking, how these finals will look. If this is the case, Geelong versus Richmond at the G, that'll be on the Friday night, Thursday night, whatever. Then West Coast versus Brisbane, you can have a Friday night in Perth, unless they want to play that on a Thursday night in Perth, or how the AFL wants to go about that. Then you've got the Giants and the Dockers in the elimination final, probably Saturday Arvo or Saturday Twilight. Then Saturday night game would be this massive MCG clash, Collingwood and Essendon. And I just think that would be such a very, very cool final series to see play out. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section down below of the video. And we'll see how right I am. I'll revisit this at the end of round 23 and over the bye week. And then I'll revise my decisions and pick who I think will win the finals from then on in. But if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a thumbs up. And yeah, that's it. That's pretty much all. Have a good one, everyone. Goodbye.